Scrapmore with Brenda. I'm Brenda, and we're here today with another episode of Quilt Bingo. Yay! Quilt Bingo. The dice ran, or we played with the dice and we shook it and we found out what number we're working on today. It is hand piecing. Hand piecing, yes. So I decided to come up with a very simple one for the beginners, but I will be talking about how to do Y seams and all the rest of the stuff so that for the guys who are doing the intermediate and the hard, you'll be able to manage your Y seams so much better. We've got those blocks done and they look really cool. So some of them are simple and so the other one looks just like the hard one looks really great. So this one's going to be a fun little adventure. Now the Quilt Bingo rules are, there are no rules. So if you really hate hand sewing, okay. We will give you, you can do this one by sewing machine, or you can pick another hand sewing block and throw it into your quilt as well. I mean, we're here about learning skills and all the rest of the stuff, but remember, there's no rules, so you can do whatever you want. Also, let's see, Mini Monday is coming back, and it will start a couple of weeks after all the New York Beauty blocks, the series is done. There's a couple of things I want to throw in there between the next one. It's coming back with some changes and we're having a lot of fun with that one. And I'll let you know more about those changes when we get back to Mini Monday. But I've had so many requests to go back to Mini Monday. So that's okay. We can do that for you guys. Also in the show notes, you're going to have your Zoom sew dates. And they're the first Saturday of the month, and they are like from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And wow, I forgot to shout out Katy at Greenland Quilting, Greenland Quilter. Her stuff is so much fun. You guys got to go check her out. And she's in Greenland. Really, she is in Greenland. It's just like really phenomenal. So yes, you go check her out as well as our Zoom sew dates. Give her some love and encouragement and hit her thumbs up and bell and all the rest of the stuff. Also, make comments, share, like, subscribe, and hit our bell so you don't miss content, and do that thumbs up too. We love hearing from all of you, and you know, yes, it helps that analytics and helps move our video forward so we can continue getting the word out there. We're giving away some fun free patterns, right? Also, we have a Facebook group, and in that Facebook group we have fabric exchanges by country to keep the postage costs down. We have community sew dates that are community chats. We have so many community chats. They're all sorts of fun. A virtual sewing room is hosted by Discord. Plus we do all the same things, other Facebook groups like show pictures, you know, what we're working on, what we're doing, you know, all that kind of stuff that's in there, and you know, sharing and taking polls and asking for help, and we do all of that kind of stuff too. Also, I speak for free. Now I'm having another speaking presentation ready to give by the end of December of 2025. So if you have booked me in the past or would like to book me, remember I do speak for free over Zoom only. I don't travel anymore with 300 pounds of quilts or anything like that. I don't do any of that. But yes, I'd be happy to accommodate your quilt guild, and hopefully we'll get to see some of your show and tell as well. You know, like life here is pretty busy and sometimes I don't get to stay and see show and tell. You can get a hold of me either by the YouTube channel has an about tab, and that's where my email address is, or you can get a hold of me through the Facebook group. I am faster at Facebook than I am at email. Also, if you guys find shout outs, somebody that needs a shout out or a pat on the back or something, please let me know. Life here is so busy, I don't even have time to go look at other YouTube channels anymore. Or if I do, it's just, you know, like I've got like 15 minutes for the day and it's like I'm done. Okay, yeah, that you're not going to find much, right? But yes, send me those shout outs as well, because I would love to continue giving people shout outs that are working hard and having some fun and, you know, doing something interesting, right? I mean, that is so cool. Now, also, the next mystery sew along that's coming up on Wednesday after Quilt Bingo is done, there's going to be like 3 or 4, maybe 5 videos in between, is going to be Twinkle Twinkle. And all the clues I'm giving you right now is save your strings. If you don't have strings and you're anti-string, you don't want to work with strings, you can just cut the pieces out and do it that way. That works. Like, nobody's saying that you can't join us because you don't have any strings. But yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. It's a little harder, but yes, it will be fun. Now, I think we've covered everything, so come on in. Let's get to the sewing, or the hand sewing of this block. Okay, yes, we're at the sewing machine, but this is where the camera is. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that first row. And basically you're going to pin, I'm just going to pin these up real quick. Like I have silk pins. And one side, it's going to be easier to sew than the other side. So you want to mark 1/4 inch in on both sides, 1/4 inch in and 1/4 inch down. Okay, because that, I have washi tape, 1/4 inch washi tape on my thumb, so I have a kind of a unique measuring tool right away. I don't need to be sitting there drawing lines and all the rest of the stuff. That's kind of a big cheat. That is a really nice cheat to get into, by the way. And because this fabric here is so dark, I'm going to sew this from the lighter side, right? Because you're only working with small pieces, right? Like you're not working with big, huge pieces. So I'm going to sew from the lighter side and just get everything all pinned up and ready to go. I have this one already done. Just I'm going to show you the basics. Now, some people really like hand sewing because they're like, wow, this is so, it's kind of soothing and comforting. So you go in where your first pin was, just take that tiniest little pin mark and you pull your pin out, of course. And now what you're going to do is you're going to make a little hand sewer's knot, and you're just going to bring your thread, just a minute here, your thread from the non-business end up under the pointy end and pull through. Now that's going to create a secondary knot, and I always like to do like a hand over knot, like one more granny knot, just because I want my hand sewn pieces to be difficult to take apart. So now you're going to sew if you're right-handed, you're sewing from your right to your left. If you're left-handed, if you're right-handed, you sew this way. If you're left-handed, you sew this way, right? So your washi tape should be on your non-dominant hand. Let's see if I can't get better. Okay, so this, you just take little stitches. Now, because you haven't done this before, work for even. Look at even stitches, not little. Work with even. Work at getting even stitches first. Small will come. The more of this you do, the easier this will go. You load your needle up, then you pull it, and then you go half a stitch back. That kind of creates a little mini lock stitch, so your whole stuff if a needle breaks, doesn't all come out at once. And you're just going to go back and forth, just like so. And every once in a while, take a measurement with your washi tape, that 1/4 inch washi tape on your thumb. That is actually like really a godsend. There we go. There. I'll just get one more. There. Now, you start a 1/4 inch in because you don't necessarily you want this area open. This is why seams on hand sewing is nothing, right? Truly nothing. And you just want to take your time. Remember to breathe. It's important to breathe because, it's otherwise. I tend to, like when I'm stressed out, I tend to, take 3 or 4 stitches, sometimes 5, and pull through. The more stressed out I am, the more I am purposely slowing down my sewing. Now, if you end up with little bubbles from the needle, little, like ripple marks, I guess, ripple marks along the seam, right? You just smooth them out with your thumb. Just, kind of finger press them flat. And, oops. And just keep going right till the end. Now, here we go. So putting 2 pieces together is not a problem, right? Now, here we go, last stitch. Pull my pin, come around like that. There we go, just quick like. And Sometimes you want to measure, you know, make sure you haven't, it hasn't puckered up or whatever, but you take half a stitch back, you come up in the same stitch, then you take your thread from the non-business end of your needle and you wrap it underneath the pointy part, and you're going to create a knot very close to your fabric, hopefully, and there. Now, I just do another hand over knot real quick, like. I can do 2 if I want, because I'm like that. There. So there we've got our first seam done. Now there's some advantages to hand sewing. I mean, other than stress relief. Well, mostly stress relief. So, oh, I'm going to show you how I do the knot. Okay. So I lay my thread, the other end, 1, 2, 3. And some people only do 2, I do 3. And then I pull through, and magically I have a knot. Hopefully it's not too big of a knot. And if it's big and lumpy like that, I just pull my thread apart and give it a little tug, a little encouragement not to be so big and lumpy. But if it's going to be that way, that's going to be that way. Okay, there I got a... Oh, I got a small one now. Where? How did I get that happening? Okay. And it broke. Of course it broke. Of course it broke. You pull too much. Okay, let's try that again. You don't want it too big and lumpy. That's the knot you're aiming for. So you lay down 1, 2, 3, roll it around. Then you pull through all the way. You've got some good thread conditioner on there, you know, for what you're doing. Now you can use just beeswax if you like, but that's what we're aiming for. Now we're going to do the same thing on this darker piece, but there's lots of advantages to hand sewing. You know, sometimes when a piece of, like pieces that you're putting together, like when you're doing really small piecing, sometimes it's just easier to hand sew them because you can hold them, right? And you know exactly where you're going to be on this sewing thing, and you don't have to worry about it, right? So now just get that. Now with your mini ruler, that washi tape ruler, being so close, your seam is pretty accurate, you know. Now, some people, like okay, there's only a few places you can make a mistake. You make it in the cutting, right? Where your size of your block is, you know, not cut correctly. Or you, something in the sewing or in the pressing. Well, when you're doing handwork, right, you have to be very careful that you're not going in too deep, right? Having too scant is easier to fix than too deep, right? So you have to kind of watch what size you're aiming at here when you're doing your 1/4 inch seam. Well, here we go. Another piece. And I'm just going to make sure it's nice and smooth. You can kind of lay that out. Don't stretch it, but lay it out. Make sure it's nice and smooth. Now, once we get this, I'll show you how we pin for the next piece. The next bit. I should have had these already half sewn. Oh well. You get to watch me. I love hand sewing because I just find it's kind of, it's like doing yoga. You know, kind of that whole meditation. I think about the day, and I think about, you know, making something with purpose, right? And you know, am I doing okay? Is my creativity there? I find I get really balanced very quickly. And here we go, right to the end. Okay. Yeah. This is a nice way to spend a day, just by doing this. Okay, oops, one more, and one more. There we go. Now you can see, because I use gray thread, I don't know if you can see this line, but it's pretty much straight. You know, when you measure, take your washi tape. Yeah, it's pretty straight. It works. Okay, now we go our half back. Now what some hand quilters do is they make a cutting template, especially when they're doing more complex stuff, and they have a sewing template. They make 2 templates out of their pieces, and they draw with pencil on the back of every sewing, like all the sewing templates. So they have lines on both sides, and that makes sure that they have the line in the right place. Now, I'm just going to quickly cut that. Now, let's get this lined up first. So, basically, we're just going to put it back the way we had it, like that. And now, we're going to sew this way. Oops. We're going to sew this way, and we're just going to do a much longer seam. What I should do is cut and then show you how I get across that seam. Now, the rule usually with hand sewing is wherever there are the most seams, that is where you know, is up, right? You don't, like, you can do blind seams if you have to, right? But it's easier to sew if you're have all the seams in the piece sewing up. Well, here we have a blind seam and another seam all at the same spot. So we're just going to take our pins and just put them in a 1/4 inch down, so we have kind of a guide as to where we're going. And we're going to do the other side as well. There we go. Okay. Just so we have a line of where we're going to be. Okay. Now you're going to watch me for the next 10 minutes try and thread a needle. Oh no. Now never take more than your arm, right? You're better off to, you know, to sew 3 or 4 arm lengths, you know, than to try and unknot several, right? So I take it from my thumb to my arm. Wow, first shot. Quick, go out and buy a Lotto ticket. There we go. There. Now, 1, 2, 3, right around the needle, push through, and hopefully get nothing like that. But of course you ended up with that because you're filming it. You're filming it, so you end up with a great big unruly knot. Okay, well, we're just going to deal with the unruly knot. I should take that apart, but anyway. Oh, there we got some more. Nope, we did not. Okay. Sometimes you can unknot it, but I think sometimes you just make it tighter. Okay, so you put your thread in your thread conditioner, and you try and get as much thread conditioner. Sometimes you need like 2-3 pulls. You know, whether you're using the traditional beeswax or one of the many ones that are out now. Wow, they have some beautiful thread conditioners. Now, I make my own because then it's, I do put beeswax in it, but it is bee scented, but not like chemical scented. Okay, so let's get back here. One day I'm just going to show you guys how to make the beeswax, the thread conditioner I use, because you probably enjoy it. And it's reasonably inexpensive to make. But, there. Okay. And just a couple more granny knots or hand over knots, just to make sure that that's not going anywhere. Okay, now, again, we're going to, see if that can get that better, a little bit better. So now, we're just going to go through this way. Now, what I should do is I should stop this video here. Well, maybe not. Oh, like I say, I'm trying to be respectful of your time, and I know you've got a whole bunch of other things to do, but you know, I'm not as fast as I once was. I'm still having a little bit of issue with tennis elbow. Not that I play tennis or anything, but yeah, tennis elbow. And it's taking its time healing, but I mean, it is what it is, right? Okay, there. Now, half a stitch back. Every time you pull through, then you go half a stitch back. That makes it very important. Now we are coming up where that center seams are. There. The rule is you put all the pieces with all the seams. You don't want, it's harder to work a blind seam. It slows you down. But a front seam is okay, right? It's easier to work. But this you've got both, which, okay. Now, it's kind of like, it wouldn't matter if this was a Y seam or not, because the same rules apply. You're going to go up to your seam, but you're going to stay on this side of your seam, right? Okay, when you come up, you don't want to be catching the other side. There. Now, you're going to pull that pin. Oops. You're going to pull that pin right on that center line. And you're going to just make sure that other side is nice and flat, like it hasn't got all puckered. Now you're going to go half a stitch back and then make that knot where you go from the non-business end around underneath the tip of the needle, and you're going to put a couple of hand over knots in there, because that seam, any seam will get stress, right? Now what you're going to do is you're going to go through the upper seam, not the back one, but the lower one. Now, if you were doing a blind seam, you'd stop, make sure that it's, all pushed out of the way correctly and everything, so you don't sew over it. Now, what you're going to do on this side is, of course, why have I got that little... Okay, so what you're going to do on this side is push both seams this way to make your first stitch. Because you're only going to stitch through the top of, right? Just like that, and then back underneath again, underneath. There we go. Make a couple of hand over knots, and then you're going to go hand stitch the rest of the way, all the way to the end. There we go. Now, if you wanted to, because you're doing them just in sections, right? You can go any way you want through the back, right? Like on the back. When you're putting this block together, for instance. Okay. This block goes here. Now, when you're sewing this together, you can sew along this line, or you can, this whole line here with this on top, or you can just sew this and then sew this, right? So that they meet in the middle. It doesn't matter, because you're going to make knots on either side of the seam, right? Now, if you want to do that, or you could do this as well as, okay, I've got this and this, now I can make it, put this all together as a Y seam if you want. I don't know why you would do that, but it would help you avoid that really long center seam. Because one of the things I find is if I have a really long seam through the middle, I tend to break it up. I want to break it up because I don't want to be carrying that much thread through the entire block. So I try and do smaller chunks of that seam at one time, especially when you're doing this, right? Because you can be out very quickly, because of puckering, just having the needle bounce up and down through your thread, right? You don't want that puckering to go on. So you try very hard not to do too long a seam. So this is the other reason why hand sewing is so perfect for little things. But, you know, this is a good size, easier for a beginner to do. And, you know, like I say, there's no rules in this quilt bingo. So if you do, you know, you can combine hand sewing and machine sewing. You can do it. It is allowed. So if you, you know, decide to do the 4-patch and then you decide, okay, yeah, I'm moving on to other projects because I don't like it. Well, that's okay. You can still use the piece of the block, the quilt block you made, and put it into your block, right? But yeah, this is, I don't know. Like I say, I enjoy it. It's very portable. And when you're doing this in doctor's offices or, you know, like waiting around hospital rooms or whatever, people always stop to see what you're working on. You know, it's a good conversation starter. You know, you'd be surprised at the number of people that come up and say, ooh, what are you doing? Last knot, underneath, there we go. And I always put a couple hand over knots just because I can. There's one, there's another one. And now we would go down the other way. So I'm going to stop here because what happens now with this, okay, like you have to press it and all this stuff and, you know, do all this. So you're going to sew like this way. You're going to sew it. So this is on top and you can see what you're doing. Okay, so I'll put it all together and we'll get to the ta-da moment. So here's our block that we finished, and we did some and yes, we did do some machine sewing on this as well, just to make sure we could film it all in one day. So yeah, this one came together really quickly. I know it's a little dark compared to all the other blocks, but you know, that's okay. It still has that main color theme of blue, red, yellow, so it's all good. Now, the intermediate one, because that was the beginner, the intermediate one is possibly my favorite. Old-fashioned bow tie with the 5 pieces. So you do have to do some Y seams as well. But I mean, these bows go together very quickly because it's just a short seam across. And then you do 2 Ys. And that's easy to do when you're doing your hand sewing. If you wanted to do, you know, let's say you didn't want this. I mean, you could do machine sewing too. That's not a problem. But this is the lesson. It's hand sewing. Now, the other one I was very proud of. Ooh, Weathervanes. The old-fashioned Weathervanes. This block lends itself so much to being a beautiful scrappy piece. Yeah, I couldn't believe. And it came together really quickly. And I was like, oh, we could have fun with this one, you know, doing a big quilt out of it and getting rid of all those little pieces that we're collecting. You know, you could just do red. It wouldn't matter what color red, and the next one's yellow, and the next one's green, you know, whatever. However you wanted to do this. And because I was playing with larger scraps, I was able to do a complete floral, or you know, like the pieces, the 4 pieces around. I do all the green the same, so it makes the block look cohesive. But you could do this really scrappy and it would look fabulous. So until then, I hope life is just absolutely grand for you, and you know, everybody's well in your family and your friends, so you don't have no worries, and you sit and sew. So you take care and stay well until we see each other again. Okay, bye! My husband and I would like to thank you for all of your support and watching our videos and sharing and liking. It has just been, you've put us on such an amazing journey, and we are having so much fun. I hope everything is going so well in your life, and you know, your 1/4 inch is perfect. Everything is working out for you. And we're just so happy to be part of your lives, and you having, like I say, you're watching us. I was just so thrilled that you're doing that. So I want to say goodbye, and I want to thank you with all my heart. Okay? Take care. Bye.